The stars looked like diamonds against the dark ocean of space as the human exploration ship Aurora approached the Corral vessel. Dr. Elena Vargas stood by the viewing window, her breath catching as the alien ship came into sight. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, elegant and curved like a giant silver crescent, glowing softly as if alive. Elena was a xenobiologist, trained for years to study alien life. This was the first joint mission between humans and the Corral, a proud alien species known for their strict traditions. Humans had met many alien races before, but the Corral were special. They were intelligent, disciplined, and famously private about their culture. As the docking completed, Elena straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. She had read everything she could about the Corral, but there was very little information about their daily lives. Today would be her first chance to live among them, to watch them closely and to learn. The airlock hissed open, and a group of Corral greeted her. They were tall and elegant, with smooth, pale blue skin and glowing golden eyes. Their movements were graceful, almost ceremonial. "Welcome, human scientist," said the leader, his deep voice resonating. "I am Roland, head of research aboard this vessel. You will be honored as our guest." Elena smiled politely and bowed slightly. "Thank you. I am honored to join you. I hope we will learn much from each other." As they led her through the ship's corridors, Elena noticed how quiet and organized everything felt. The walls glowed softly, the air was cool, and every Corral they passed nodded respectfully. There was no casual chatter, no random noise, just calm efficiency. Her quarters were small but comfortable, with smooth furniture and a round bed that adjusted its shape when she sat on it. A small orb floated near the ceiling, projecting soft light. After settling in, Elena was invited to join the crew in the common chamber. It was a large open space with a transparent ceiling showing the stars above. The Corral sat in a wide circle, discussing the day's plans. Elena quickly realized that everything about their lives followed a schedule. They ate at the same time, worked at the same time, and rested at the same time. Even their conversations felt precise, like every word had a purpose. When it was Elena's turn to speak, she introduced herself and explained her role. "I study life, not just alien life, but how life adapts to different worlds. I am here to observe, learn, and share human knowledge with you." The Corral nodded thoughtfully, and one of them asked, "Human doctor, is it true that your species can choose when to reproduce?" Elena blinked, surprised at the directness of the question, but she had trained for cultural exchanges like this. "Yes," she said carefully. "Humans can form relationships and start families at any time of the year. There is no fixed season for it." A low murmur moved through the Corral circle. Roland's golden eyes glowed faintly brighter, which Elena had learned was a sign of curiosity. "This is very unusual," Roland said slowly. "Among our kind, reproduction happens once every cycle of our home star. Our males prepare for months before it happens, and it is treated as a sacred time. Your kind must be very different," Elena smiled. "We are different, yes. Humans do not wait for seasons. We have freedom to choose. We can focus on building our families whenever we are ready. For us, it is a personal decision." The Corral exchanged glances, clearly fascinated. Some of them whispered to each other, and Elena could almost feel the weight of their curiosity. That night, as she lay on the strange, soft bed, Elena thought about the conversation. To her, human relationships were ordinary, but to the Corral, they were something extraordinary. It reminded her that this mission was not just about science. It was about showing what it meant to be human. As the ship moved silently through space, Elena made a silent promise to herself. She would represent humanity with pride. She would show these aliens that being human was not chaos, but strength. And deep down, she felt excited. This was just the beginning of the journey. The next morning, Elena woke early. The ship's soft lights brightened slowly, simulating dawn. She stretched and dressed quickly, eager to begin her first full day among the Corral. When she stepped into the corridor, she found Roland waiting for her. "You rise early, human scientist," he said with a slight nod. Elena smiled. "Humans often wake early when they're excited. There's a lot I want to see today." Roland led her to the research chamber where Corral scientists worked with strange floating instruments and glowing panels. Everything looked clean and precise, as if no movement was wasted. Elena watched quietly for a while, taking notes on her tablet. Finally, Roland turned to her. Would you like to see our life cycle records? It may help you understand our ways. Elena's eyes lit up. Yes, please. Roland guided her to a tall crystal display. When he touched its surface, images appeared. Bright, detailed holograms of Coral at different stages of life. He explained how their society worked. Children were raised in shared learning halls, then trained for their future roles. When males reached the right age, they entered a special preparation phase that lasted several months. Only after this time were they allowed to choose a mate, and it all happened within a single season each year. Elena listened carefully, fascinated. So everything is planned? Even family life? Yes, Roland said with pride. It keeps our society balanced. There is no confusion, no disorder. Every child is born at the right time and every family has the resources it needs. Elena nodded slowly. I can see how that works for you. But for humans, things are different. We don't always plan everything. Sometimes families are built unexpectedly, but that does not make them less important. We make it work. Several Coral who were listening looked surprised. One of them tilted his head. Do you mean there is no single season for your reproduction? You can create life at any time? Yes, Elena said. Humans can have children at any point in the year. Some choose to wait until they are ready, some don't. It is always a choice. A quiet buzz went through the room. The aliens were clearly intrigued by this idea. To them, it was almost unthinkable. Roland's golden eyes glowed more brightly than before. This explains why your species grows so quickly. You do not wait for the right time. You make the time right. Elena smiled. That's a very good way to say it. Later, during the meal period, Elena joined the crew in the common chamber again. The food was simple but tasty, a soft blue fruit with a sweet flavor and a warm soup-like drink. The Coral sat in perfect circles while eating, speaking only when necessary. One young Coral asked, Human doctor, if you can form families at any time, does it not cause conflict? Do many fight over the same choice? Elena laughed softly. Humans do argue sometimes, yes. But we also talk, forgive, and try again. Our freedom can cause mistakes, but it also gives us the power to love deeply. We choose our partners because we want to, not because we must. The young Coral looked amazed. To choose because you want to, he said softly, almost as if he were tasting the idea for the first time. Roland nodded thoughtfully. This may explain why your species is so creative. Your freedom to choose gives you many paths, many possibilities. Elena felt a warm pride in her chest. It was rare to see aliens respect human ways so openly. Over the next few days, Elena spent more time with Roland. They walked the observation deck together, looking at distant stars. They compared Earth's blue skies and oceans to the Coral's homeworld, which had 2 suns and glowing silver deserts. Roland seemed especially curious about human emotions. You form bonds quickly, he said one evening. Even with strangers, why? Because connection makes us strong, Elena explained. When we trust each other, we can face anything, hunger, danger, even war. Our history is full of struggle, but our ability to care for one another helped us survive. Roland was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, Perhaps there is more strength and flexibility than we thought. Elena smiled. Maybe. I think both of our species have things to teach each other. That night, as Elena returned to her quarters, she felt something change. The Coral were no longer just her hosts. They were becoming her friends. And she knew that this understanding between their species might grow into something much greater. But out in the distance, the stars shone like silent watchers. Somewhere beyond those stars, challenges awaited. Elena had no idea that soon, both humans and Coral would face a test that would demand everything they had learned from one another. The Aurora and the Coral vessel traveled smoothly for several days, moving deeper into uncharted space. Elena had grown used to the quiet hum of the ship and the calm voices of the crew. Life on board had begun to feel normal. But one evening, while she was reviewing her notes in the research chamber, the ship's lights suddenly flickered. A loud alarm filled the air, sharp and urgent. Elena jumped to her feet as Coral crew members rushed to their stations. What's happening? Elena asked, hurrying toward Roland. He touched a glowing control panel, his golden eyes narrowing. A solar flare from the nearby star. Its radiation is striking our shields. If we do not adjust our position quickly, the energy could damage our systems. Elena glanced at the display. Streams of deadly radiation were already moving toward them. Can we move out of the way? Yes, Roland said, but the ship's navigation core was just struck. Our engines will not respond until we reset the system. This process will take 6 standard hours. Elena felt her stomach twist. 6 hours might be too long. The flare's radiation could disable their power completely. The crawl crew began their emergency protocols. Everyone moved in a precise, practiced rhythm, each one performing their assigned task without question. Elena was impressed, but as she watched the main display, she saw the incoming radiation levels rise higher. Their shield power was dropping faster than expected. Roland, she said urgently, your plan might not work in time. We need to find a way to boost the shields or move the ship sooner. Roland frowned. It is not within protocol to attempt repairs during a radiation storm. The procedure is to wait for the reset. But we can't just wait, Elena said firmly. If we lose power completely, we will all be trapped. Roland hesitated. He had seen how resourceful Elena could be, but breaking protocol was not easy for any Corral. What do you suggest? He asked. Elena looked at the system's map and quickly formed an idea. Your ship uses an energy core similar to ours. If we reroute power from the secondary systems, we can give the shields a short boost. It might give us just enough time for the engines to restart. That could overload the conduits, Roland warned. Yes, Elena said, but it could also save us. We can replace damaged conduits. We can't replace lives. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Roland gave a slow nod. Very well. Show us how. Elena worked quickly with the crawl engineers. Together, they pulled up the power grid and redirected energy from lights, heating, and even the gravity system. The ship's artificial gravity flickered and failed, and Elena had to grab a handhold to stay steady as she floated in midair. Now, she called out. Roland activated the reroute. The shield level jumped upward just as the strongest wave of radiation hit. The entire ship shook as if struck by a giant hand, but the shields held. The next hour was tense. The crew floated through the dark, cold corridors, manually monitoring every system. Elena worked side by side with the Corral, checking circuits and making sure the shield stayed stable. Finally, the navigation core rebooted, and the engines came back online. Roland gave the order to move the ship to a safer orbit. The alarm stopped and the lights slowly returned. A quiet cheer went through the chamber. Not loud, not chaotic, but full of relief. Roland turned to Elena. Your idea saved this vessel. Without your actions, our shields would have failed. Elena floated for a moment before gently pushing herself toward him. It was teamwork. Your crew trusted me and we made it work together. One of the younger Corral engineers said in awe, You acted so quickly. You did not even wait to debate. That's how humans are, Elena said with a tired smile. We adapt fast. We take risks when we must. As the ship stabilized, Roland studied her carefully. Perhaps this is why your species has survived so many dangers. You are not bound by cycles or strict rules. You are flexible. Sometimes that's the only way to survive, Elena said softly. That night, as the crew rested, Elena sat near the viewing window, watching the stars. She felt both exhausted and proud. Today she had shown the Corral what humanity could do when faced with danger. But she also knew this was only the beginning. She could sense that the mission was changing. The Corral no longer saw her as just an observer, and now they saw her as part of their team. And somewhere deep inside, Elena felt a quiet determination. If danger came again, she would be ready. After the solar flare incident, the atmosphere aboard the Corral vessel had changed. Where there had been quiet curiosity, there was now a sense of respect. The crew moved with their usual precision, but there was an unspoken acknowledgement of Elena's presence. A recognition that humans could act in ways even the Corral had not anticipated. Elena noticed it during breakfast. The Corral usually ate in absolute silence, speaking only when necessary. That morning, several crew members asked her questions about human problem-solving, about how humans could make choices so quickly in dangerous situations. Roland joined her at the table, his golden eyes glinting with interest. Human doctor, you may explain more of your ways to us. The crew is curious. Elena smiled, choosing her words carefully. Humans are used to uncertainty. Our history is full of dangers, unpredictable events and challenges. We survive because we adapt. Sometimes rules help, but sometimes you have to act, even if the rules do not allow it. The Corral listened intently. Even the younger ones seemed to hang on her every word. One of them, a female engineer named Lithara, tilted her head. "So your species values choice over certainty?" she asked. "Yes," Elena said. "Choice is freedom. Freedom lets humans solve problems, build families, and create things that follow no pattern but work anyway." Roland leaned back, considering. "It is unusual. Our people value structure above all. Predictability keeps us safe, organized, and strong. But now I see that flexibility has its own power." For the next several days, Elena worked closely with the Corral on multiple projects. She helped design new procedures for the ship's systems, incorporating small human ideas of improvisation and quick adjustments. At first, the Corral hesitated to follow her suggestions. They were used to rules, not trial and error, but slowly they began to see the results. Tasks that had once taken hours were completed faster. Problems that would have stalled their work were solved quickly, and even the younger crew members began to smile more openly at small successes. Roland observed all this quietly. One evening, as they walked along the observation deck, he spoke. "Human doctor, your people. Your species is remarkable. You are not as predictable as us, yet you thrive. Your choices give you strength we do not possess." Elena looked at him, her eyes reflecting the endless stars. Sometimes strength comes from knowing when to bend rules and when to hold them. Humans have survived because we trust ourselves, and each other, to act when needed. Roland considered her words for a long moment. "I think I understand now. Perhaps our people have been too rigid. There is much we can learn from you." The two of them stood in silence, gazing at a distant cluster of stars. The experience had created a quiet bond between human and alien. Mutual respect formed from shared challenge and understanding. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew began adopting Elena's methods in small ways. The younger engineers were no longer afraid to suggest ideas. During drills, they experimented with new solutions. The ship felt alive in a way it had not before, a mixture of order and creative energy. Even the elders, who had once frowned upon change, started to notice improvements. Efficiency increased and morale rose. For the first time, many Corral realized that rules could guide them without limiting them completely. Elena's influence extended beyond technical matters. The Corral began to discuss human culture openly, asking questions about music, stories, and the ways humans expressed emotions. It fascinated Elena to see a species so disciplined marvel at something so ordinary to her. A human smile, a song, or a choice made out of love or curiosity. Roland approached her one day, holding a small crystal orb. "Human doctor, I would like you to see something." He touched the orb and a hologram appeared, a simulation of the Corral homeworld city during its busiest season. Then he added a human touch, small unpredictable events, people helping one another, children playing, moments of laughter. Elena laughed softly. "You've added humanity." "Yes," Roland said. "I believe our people could benefit from understanding this. Flexibility, unpredictability. It is a kind of strength we have not known." Elena nodded. "That's what I've been trying to show you. Sometimes the best results come from adapting, not just following rules." As the days passed, Elena felt proud and content. She had come as an observer, a student of the Corral, but now she was also a teacher, not in the sense of telling them what to do, but in showing them what humanity could offer: resilience, adaptability, and the courage to act even when rules and cycles seemed strict. At night, she often gazed out at the stars from her quarters, thinking of Earth. And she realized something. Humanity's strength was not in being perfect, but in being able to face uncertainty with hope, intelligence, and a willingness to act. Roland had learned this lesson too, and slowly so had the rest of the Corral. The seeds of respect, understanding, and change had been planted. And somewhere deep in the ship's glowing corridors, Elena felt a quiet certainty. Their greatest tests were still ahead. Weeks passed, and the mission neared its end. The Corral vessel had gathered all the data it needed from the unexplored star systems, and soon it would turn back toward its homeworld. The humans aboard Aurora would return to Earth as well. Elena stood in the observation deck, staring at the starfield one last time. It felt strange. This ship, which had once seemed so cold and silent, now felt like home. The Corral, who had once looked at her with suspicion, now greeted her with warmth. Roland approached quietly, his golden eyes glowing softly. "You are leaving soon," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "Yes," Elena said. "It feels strange. I've learned so much here. I think I'll miss this place," Roland nodded slowly. "And we will miss you. You have changed us, human. Doctor, I do not think we will ever see our cycles the same way again." Elena smiled gently. "And you have changed me. I came here to study you, but instead I found friends. You reminded me that structure can also be a kind of strength, that discipline is not weakness but order." Roland looked thoughtful. "Perhaps this is the lesson we were meant to learn from one another. You brought us adaptability. We gave you a new respect for order. Together we found balance." Before the ship separated, the Corral Council sent a message to Elena, requesting her to speak to them through the ship's communication link. It was a rare honor, one usually reserved for leaders and great thinkers. Elena stood before the glowing communication array. Dozens of Corral elders appeared as shimmering figures. They waited patiently for her to speak. She took a deep breath and began, her voice steady but warm. "Honored Council, I came here to observe and learn about your people. What I found was something far greater. I discovered that though our species are different, we are connected by a shared goal: survival, growth, and the wish to create a better future. Humans are not perfect. We are impulsive, sometimes chaotic, and often stubborn, but our strength is in our freedom to choose, in our ability to adapt to anything the universe throws at us. That is why we can face danger without waiting for the perfect moment, because we make the moment right. I hope that you will see humanity not as reckless, but as creative allies who can stand with you when challenges come. Together our strengths can make us both stronger." When she finished, the Corral elders were silent for a long moment. Then the eldest spoke. "Human Doctor, you have taught us more than we expected. Our people will study your words and your actions. We will remember that structure keeps us safe, but flexibility allows us to grow." Roland stood beside her, pride glowing in his eyes. After the transmission ended, the crew gathered in the common chamber for a final shared meal. This time the Corral did something surprising. They allowed music to play softly in the background, a simple melody that Elena had shared from Earth. The room felt lighter, warmer. Crew members exchanged quiet smiles. Some of the younger Corral even laughed softly, something Elena had never heard before this mission. When it was time for the two ships to separate, Elena walked to the docking bay with Roland. He placed a small crystal orb in her hands. "This holds the memory of our mission," he said. "Our people will share it with every generation, so they will know that the first human to live among us brought not chaos, but wisdom." Elena's throat tightened with emotion. "Thank you, Roland. I'll keep this with me always." As she boarded the Aurora, Elena turned for one last look. The Corral stood in perfect formation, but there was something new in their posture, a quiet openness, a willingness to embrace change. When the two ships separated, Elena watched through the viewing window as the Corral vessel glided away into the stars. Captain Hale of the Aurora came to stand beside her. "I hear you made quite an impression," he said with a grin. Elena smiled. "I think we made an impression together. Humanity showed them what it means to act, to adapt, to choose." The captain nodded. "That's what we do best." As Earth's blue and green sphere came into view many days later, Elena felt a swell of pride. She had gone into space as a scientist, but she was returning as something more, a bridge between worlds. When she finally stepped onto Earth soil, she knew that somewhere across the galaxy, the Corral were telling stories about the strange human who had taught them the value of flexibility, choice and courage, and perhaps one day, when the next mission came, it would not be just humans learning from the Corral. It would be both species building something greater, side by side. For Elena, this was only the beginning. The stars still waited, and humanity's story among them had only just started.